Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this Unity video I'd like to talk about how to use buttons within the Unity system. So here you can see I've got something of a level select screen going on here with a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, and a level 4 button. And in the bottom right I've also got some work in progress save and load game buttons. Now each of these buttons can do a different thing, but when you drag a UI button onto your canvas, which is where they would be located since all UI elements do go on the canvas, it's going to have a rect transform, a canvas renderer, image script, a button script, and those aren't custom scripts you've written, those are default Unity scripts. And that's pretty much it. So if you look down here at the bottom, you will notice that there is onClick. So this is an event that basically your buttons can handle by themselves without any custom coding, and you can drag other game objects, like for instance if I grab this image and put that here, and if you set the drop-down to runtime only or editor and runtime, you'll be able to select some functions that can trigger whenever your button is clicked, which is pretty much the whole point of a button. You want it to trigger a on-click event and do something with. So what you'll notice here is that these buttons are using a custom image. So if you look at image script, source image is what I'd be talking about here. And with the Cartoon UI pack, which I grabbed off of the Unity store, it's free by the way, you can select any image you want your button to take. And then in the button script, you can set the color for each, basically each button state. So normal color would be when it's enabled but you're not doing anything with it. Highlighted color is when you're hovering over it. Pressed is when you've pressed your left mouse button down or you're pressing down on your mobile device, depending on what kind of device you're using. And disabled is when it is unclickable. Now, with these colors, you don't really need to set it to like yellow if you have a yellow button. It will factor in what color it already is and transition it more towards whatever shade of white or black you are selecting. So if we go ahead and play this scene here, you'll be able to see what I mean. We have the buttons, and if I hover over them, it doesn't transition into a white color. Actually, it transitions a little bit darker, but it keeps its yellow color. And the same applies if I press down and if I was to disable it as well. Now what happens when you click on a button is going to be entirely up to you. You can have other scripts running where maybe you want to load a level. So if you have something like a game control object that moves between all of your scenes and manages your entire game, you could have that game control do something like, let's say, load a level or load a scene. So load scene, and I have a method here that takes a argument of a string, so I could say RPG scene 1, which should still be in the game. Then let's actually go ahead and test that out. Okay, so it couldn't be loaded because it has not been added to the build, or the asset bundle has not been loaded, which I guess just means the level is not here. So let's actually go ahead and add that RPG scene. Drag it over here, but make sure it is unloaded. So now it should be in the runtime build here. So you can see it did in fact load the level properly. There are some issues here, but those are unrelated to the button itself. It did load the level properly. So one thing I want to warn you against is when you are laying out your UI, and you have certain elements like a screen fader which may be going over your entire screen. You want to set it so that that image, in this case it's a black image that just covers everything, it cannot be a raycast target. If you don't want it to interfere with these buttons when it, let's say, fades to an alpha of 0, which means it's invisible, but it's still there and still blocking the raycasts on your other elements. So for instance, if I was to enable raycast target here, and the screen fader was to go ahead and go in, let's do that. Here, let's see. Okay, so it went ahead and loaded, but now because it's in the way of the raycasts, we can't actually click on the buttons. So just be careful about that. Anything that's lower on the canvas is going to basically be in front of these UI buttons, and if that's blocking it by being a raycast target, you will be unable to click your buttons. Sorry, friend Chris, that should be a quick rundown of buttons inside of Unity. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my future content.